Hey, Jason Fladlien here, and today I want to give you a teaching framework. It's the one I use more than any other when I'm educating, and also in very often presentations where I am selling something at the end of it. I will fall into this framework. I like it because it's easy to understand. I can map out whole curriculums, and I can do the whole 16-hour training on this framework, and I can get the framework out in a day maybe. So the whole preparation for the thing will take a day at most, probably even less. Now, obviously in areas where you need to research it and you're not necessarily an unconscious expert at the thing, then it will take you longer, but nonetheless, you can hang all of your research on this framework. And so you will create better content quicker, and it will have better impact, and it will lead to more sales, more revenue for you. So what is it? All right. The framework essentially starts with no matter what you're teaching, the first thing that you do is you say, here's what it is. Second thing you do is why it matters. Third thing is what's involved. Fourth thing is how to use it. Fifth thing is the good and bad of what can happen when you do use it. So those are the 5 elements. Why do we pick these elements exactly? So it's a good question. A lot of this has been rooted on some psychological research on how human beings respond to information that I've studied over the years, or from certain cognitive scientists and psychologists and researchers, where I've noticed how they've studied communication and what their models are, and then tried and applied what made sense and adjusted it to this modern business communication context that we are involved with. So the first thing that I do, so let me review it again with you. No matter what you're teaching, what the topic is, you start off with what it is, then you go into why it matters, then you say what's involved, how to use it, what can happen. So what is it? A system for business owners to double their productivity in 7 days or less. Let's pretend that I'm teaching you productivity. I could teach you any and everything on productivity. So I have to give you a clearly defined outcome. I always think about this as putting a puzzle together without looking at the box, the cover of what the end picture is going to look like. That's how most people teach and instruct and educate. Is they don't give you the puzzle box, the cover of it, to say this is what we're putting together before giving you the pieces. They just throw the pieces at you. So if I were teaching a training on productivity, specifically a system to double your business productivity in 7 days or less, now you know what's at stake. Not just any productivity, business productivity. Not just any open-ended amount of productivity, doubling of productivity. So we have a measurement, and then we have a time component. So usually those are the 3 elements of what it is. It's an outcome with this measurement objective to it in this amount of time. It doesn't always have to be that way, but regardless, is I try to give them in one sentence. And if I don't even tell them the one sentence, for me at least, putting the curriculum together, I have that one key sentence. By the end of this training, here is what my audience will be able to do. It as clearly and specifically defined as possible. That's what I attempt to make that one sentence about. Otherwise, you teach too general. And the problem with the general type of teaching is people get all dressed up, but they don't have anywhere to go. Or it feels good in the moment, but it's hard to apply in real life. So we always start with what it is. And before we can teach it to other people, we have to have absolute clarity ourselves on the specificness of what we're trying to attempt to teach. Now we move on to why it matters. Now, David McClellan, but he was a scientist, I believe at Harvard or Yale. It's been many, many years since I've studied this theory of motivation, I believe it was called, or motivation theory, where the premise is people are generally motivated by one of 3 things predominantly. They're either motivated for achievement, they're motivated for power, or they're motivated for affiliation. I believe that those are the specific language that McClellan uses. So as an example, if I was teaching, how to double your business productivity in 7 days or less, which by the way, you tell them the result, and you can even get a placebo effect if nothing else. If people now know what the outcome is, this is why people can take sugar pills and get better. Because they're so fixated on the outcome that they find a way to get there, regardless if the input is valid or not. So I'll take a placebo if it gets you a good result at the end of the day, if that's all the teaching is. But if we were saying to somebody, I'm going to teach you a system on how to double your business productivity in 7 days or less, the very first way that I would intro that, or the frame that I would set to get people engaged, is I would cover all 3 segments of motivation if I'm teaching in mass, right? So I might say, hey, listen, once you're done with the system, it will put you in a position where you might be able to break industry records, and you might set personal bests or even world firsts. And that's an achievement achievement-based motivation. This is where you do the thing to see how well you can do the thing. By the way, I'm achievement motivated more than power motivated or affiliation motivation. I want to see how capable I am of something. And I want to have a result that I can measure myself against. And so that's a portion of your population. So if I'm training on anything, I say, here's what it is. And then why does it matter? One of the reasons it matters is because of an achievement-focused outcome. But a second motivation is power. More control over your schedule would be an example of power in the productivity example we're given in this video. So I could say, hey, listen, I'm going to teach you the system to double your business productivity in 7 days or less. When you follow this system, you'll be able to break records, either personal best or even potentially industry best. You'll put yourself in a position to achieve more in less time and with less effort. You'll also be able to have more control over your schedule when you follow this system. So you'll be able to set your hours more, you'll have more free time, which equals autonomy, to have more control and influence and power over how you want to spend your time. So that's the second one. See how I did that there? So we've had achievement, we've had power, and the last one is affiliation. Affiliation is just a $5 word for essentially connection and personal relationships being enhanced with other people. So it's a social motivation. And so the final thing that I could say is like, hey, listen, I'm going to teach you how to double your business productivity in 7 days or less. As a result of this training, you'll put yourself in a position to break records, either personal records or perhaps even industry records. You'll also now have more influence and control over your time, and you'll have better impact on the people in your life that you serve in a business capacity. And also, you'll have more time to focus on people in a personal relationship that you're in with, because you'll be able to be more present with them. Because when business is done, business will be done, and you'll have more free time for the personal pursuits in your life. So what have we done here? This is really important. Some of the population doesn't need the why at all. Most entrepreneurs are predicated on, I don't care about the why. I already know I want the outcome. Let's just focus on that. We should still cover all of our bases. It doesn't take much time and it's important anyway. So we hit the why. So it's usually just 3 sentences. So here's what it is. Here's what I'm going to teach you today. Or here's what I'm going to teach you, period. Here's why it matters. 3 reasons. 1 achievement-based, 1 power-based, 1 affiliated. And now here's what's involved. When I teach things, I generally will look for 2 to 5 components or factors that make the most difference in the thing that I'm teaching. It's always the law of the vital, the 80-20 rule. Those all mean the same thing. A few things will get a majority of the results. And so when I'm teaching other people, what I'm really doing is shorthanding. Don't focus on these 100 little things that probably don't make any difference over here. Focus on these few things over here that make a difference. So for your audience, we have to say what's most important to the majority of audience, that if we can focus on just these few things that matter, it'll give them a majority of the results, the outcomes. And so it's typically 2 to 5 things. So if I was teaching a system on doubling business productivity in 7 days or less, 3 things that I may decide to focus on. Usually I find it's whatever I'm kind of in the mood, because there's always 8 or 9 components that are really important. I'm like, which 3 or 4 or 5? I think it's these. And that's what I go with. You train it, and if it plays out great, you know you're right. If it doesn't nail it in the pocket like you want to, you can go back and do the training again later. And you can give it to people for free as a follow-up, saying, hey, I tried it again this way. Tell me your thoughts on it. I mean, whatever. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because you're serving. What you're giving people is focus towards an outcome, and that in and of itself is extremely valuable. But for example, I might say, here's what's involved. What's involved are the power of deadlines. What's involved are systems, how to build them, how to use them, how to manage them, and how to automate them. And then I say what's also involved would be knowing what the vital few things are. And I might teach them on how to create those vital few things. I know this is a little inception-y. What's involved though is just 2 to 5 components. And then you take each of those components, those 2 to 5 components, and you explain how to use them. So for example, we could talk about deadlines and how to use them. So here's what should be set to a deadline. And I would teach the philosophy of anything important should have a deadline attached to it. So if it ain't important, don't put a deadline on it. But my question to you is, why would you not be doing important stuff all the time in business? So the conclusion is, everything you do should have a deadline attached to it in business if you care about its result. And so now that helps somebody realize, okay, this is how I use deadlines. I need them. Period. And then I might talk about, as an example to prove that point, Parkinson's law, task at hand expands to fill the allotted time available. And so that would emphasize why deadlines are so important to them, to get them to buy in. And like, okay, I know how to use a deadline. The answer is I will always have a deadline. The use case of it is 100%. The second thing is I could explain to them how to set deadlines in realistic fashions so they're not too narrow and create too much stress. So even when you win, you lose, but they're not too distant, too far in the future, so your productivity doesn't quite increase. So I might teach them a baseline. Hey, if we want to double your productivity, we just cut your deadline in half. And if you do everything else the same, you will double your productivity. So that is how I could go about teaching that, or a million other ways. See, this is the wonderful thing about educating people and teaching them and training and communication is there's a million ways to the top of the mountain. The problem is when you're evaluating all of them from the bottom and you're never making a decision. And so we help people parse it out when we say what's involved. So we narrow their focus on the few things that matter. And for each of those things, we give directions. Typically, my directions and the way I say it are either factors or steps. I say, okay, so for deadlines, here are the 3 to 5 factors involved that you need to be aware of. Or instead, I might say steps. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this. Step 4, do this. And you're done. You can teach anything either in here's the criteria and how you make decisions, or here are the steps involved that you must follow. Everything can be taught that way. Most things are not taught either way, not formally, not structurally. So you should do one or the other. So for each of the components of what's involved, when you break them down, say, here's the factors to consider to use these, or here's the steps involved to apply these. And then the last part of this framework is what can happen. So here's what it is. Here's why it matters. Here's what's involved. Here's how to use each piece of what's involved. And finally, here's what can happen. So like in the productivity example, I can say, here's what can happen the first few times you use it. You'll fumble it, you'll screw it up a little bit. It won't feel comfortable just yet, but if you measure it, I'm pretty sure you're gonna see a massive increase in your productivity immediately. So what does that mean? It means even in a worst case scenario, you see an uptick. So what's gonna happen when you use it over and over again? So typically the model of what can happen is, here's what happens the first time you use this. Here's what's likely to happen over time as you gain some control and experience with it. And then here's what it looks like when you achieve mastery on it. And the other part of what can happen is, here's what to do when you run into obstacles and challenges. So I try to think about what are the 2 to 3 things that when somebody attempts this might humble them, might say, I don't know what to do, I'm lost, or I knew it wouldn't work, right? So how can I give them an optimism that in the face of a challenge, here are some adjustments you may make. So I might know that certain portions of my audience may encounter certain issues, and if they do encounter those certain issues, I can guess at what their response will be. And the response always has to be, here's how you can move forward. The default of any audience is, here's where I stop once I hit friction. So we want to empower them to anticipate possible friction and then equip them with the ability to adjust from that friction to continue to move forward. And then we hit every group that exists out there when it comes to the way that people take education in, or people get insight from when they're learning something. We hit the people that need to know the why, but we hit the why, the people that need to understand the foundation of the thing before buying into the thing. We also hit the bigger picture people. They need to see the whole thing before they can get excited about anything. So if they feel fuzziness or incompleteness, it's hard for them to move forward. So we get the why people over here. We get the what's involved people over here, which is like, I need to see kind of the bigger picture the forest before I can get into the trees. Then we get into how to use it. So we pick up the people that are procedural focused or bottom line focused. I want to get this done. I want to get this output. We pick them up as well. And then we also get the what can happen people that are more future orientated as opposed to past or present orientated, where they kind of need to know what this looks like in the future and how it's run before they engage in it in the present. So those are the main ways in which a majority of the population, they're prejudiced to process information from one of those lenses. Not only do we cover all those lenses with this model, but there's an enhancement of understanding when you overlap them. So a how user can benefit from why and what, even if they're not necessarily inclined to seek it out. Anybody, if they can see the outcome in the distant future become more clear in the present, will be more motivated to move towards that outcome. Not just the people that are predominantly positioned to look at the present through the future first. The overlap creates a massive net positive effect. It's a multiplication effort, not an addition effort. And I think though, best of all, is it gives you a framework in which you can manage information. You can take this open-ended concept and put some structure around it. And that will increase your productivity and your impact as well when you go and apply this. So that's what can happen for you. And the more you use this, the better you'll get at it. Eventually, you won't even have to map it out. You put me in front of an audience on a subject that I know, I could speak for 4 hours and people can understand it and get it and feel excited about it. Because I have frameworks, this is one of them, I have other frameworks too, in which I can draw from that I don't even have to write on paper anymore. They're pretty automatic. However, generally for the bigger things, when there's a lot of money on the line, I'll break out the pen, break out the paper, lay it out just like that. So let me know how it works for you, and I'll see you in the next video.